Saquarema City. Today is day 21 August 2023. We'll have a conversation, quite simple, quite clear. I think it's not necessary, but we will kind of have the issues. It's important, please take a look at the board. We will check that the frequency 55, which is Brazil, has an exponential behavior based on the density as distortion, represented by the value -1 as corruption. This pandemic mobilization as a distribution, indeed they have to trace only one, and I did Brazil to get them all integrated by failure as an embedded system. The distribution of values are quite simple in the very first moment as a strike. When you look at the environment, you observe if the environment is regular or not regular, which means criminal. And we observe that the regular environment can be confirmed by the behavior or variables inside and also the intention as something really straight or something corrupted. In the same way, the criminal activity, which can be a real criminal activity or something corrupted. This was the idea of this model. The machine learning by binary models will be fed by this. We must do the optimization, and having this quantum research, of course, that we will observe quite clear the second moment now at the board, which is this effort is totally under violation, and the offenders got in touch with the issues, but to support the criminal activity as we proved. The matrix as the machine learning, it's how the machine will do the reading of the process after got optimized. The interference on it hurt the interest. You will have the same model here as a decisory tree or a patternless counting here at the matrix. The positive one as my entry at the space with the internal value confirmed or not confirmed. It's the idea of embedded system. If the Brazil frequency corrupted is inside the security forum, and the security forum is part of the big array as global defense NATO, the NATO is corrupted by the Brazil. It's proved by facts the interference has an intent as criminal intent. After all, and almost 10 years, we are charging 38 trillion and having 10 billion cases, considering the harassment and the economic espionage perpetrated by criminal offenders at public department, even at this tiny city named Saquarema or Rio de Janeiro. You will observe, for instance, that some checks at distribution of power, considering the government, the judicial system, and the Congress change periodically. In the same way, the government in general, the judicial system has lifelong checks. It means that they know the crimes and problems all the time. The defensive system, the judicial system, the prosecution, and also the police always will get in touch with the crimes and the offenders. And if they get the institutional power, the failure is quite simple. Is them all threatening, we all affecting our relation, our guarantees, and the consumer, all things. They are vagabonds. They will observe that this model here now have the distribution of frequency. We will observe that Brazil corrupted at this tiny city, which belongs to the Rio de Janeiro Federative Unit, has a second frequency, for instance, Rio de Janeiro City, the same federative unit, and this will go on and on until you get the entire Brazilian environment as conjunctural traced. You will observe that the criminal activity of the judicial system, which is a reality in Brazil, it's the organized crime. Part of them, they are all integrated in the budget and operate in a transcontinental level. You get this, for instance, the system has one property that the variable, the system know the variables and carry the variables with. the system will try to do the optimization as mandatory to balance things and put as the energy entropy, which is the idea as continuity of the system. If the top judicial chair, which implies the Supreme Court, receive a plea bargains and criminal elements are having indictment, will lead to an indictment of a member of this court or any interest related with, and this court change the plea bargain, we observe that the variable is part of the systemic mobilization of crime or systemic crime. And if it's the top chair at the judicial system, of course that the entire judicial system from the top and to the bottom is a fraud, like we observe in Brazil 24 hours a day at least since 1988. We observe that this idea is quite simple, is the most relevant thing we have to do and talk today. You please consider, for instance, you can buy things at this small tiny city because the consumer is part of life, and one relevant choice that we do all the time, even in a country that do not respect your guarantees, your professional attributes, and your freedom to have the thoughts, the creativity, and the creation of all things. It's a bless of freedom and also a bless of God. And by this country is against the freedom, their own constitution, and all others, including the will of God. And it's unable to understand and have this straight, despite we have them all segmented and sliced as department and corporate peers at offices, to have those notations at the chair, at the court. Dismantle this criminal scheme in the way we did, put them all desperate and integrated with petition and a lot of repetition as misconduct to keep the illicit advantage they had all this period, which can be something illegal that they got, or the unfairness there which are perpetrated against anyone as an individual, a group of interests like a family or a moral entity, or even an entire state as conjuncture, and by reciprocity they must receive the same treatment they do with we all the time, threatening and putting ourselves in danger, especially at the consumer and all other things, not only by interference, but things produced like rotten meat, for instance. Right, Brazil? See? You are doomed by your peers. The interference you did at G20, of course, that puts you all in solidarity. By failure, the model will take a look and have the reading of our diary to show, the respect we are accustomed to do, and of course have as treatment, not having from Brazil, because Brazil is unable to understand international policies despite claiming international investment all the time, but doing frauds at the international financial system and have no commitment with transparency and accountability to be at this international financial system, but operated at this international financial system and global economy, affecting by corruption also the global stability of the scenery and the global defense. And considering that we will not suffer any consequence at sliced department on segments prepared to have those chairs on courts, of course you will do, and you will face a lot of problems. I bet you will continue doing the fraudulent scams you do because you believe that this will allow you to scapegoat things and have the continuity of the criminal activity by this fake web scam, deep web scam. But in a small city, things are much more easy to work, especially by the cretinisms you present in all things you do, and the cognitive deficit you have in all things you made. By this you are a fraud down here, and for sure below the animals, as a monkey that you are. You observe that the G20 corrupted, affected my guarantees in a situation that has no excuse to be made, hurting interest on it. By this, we are charging our paper coverage 38 trillion, 10 billions. You all integrated on Brazilian public budget in solidarity, to be charged in the same way and respecting the solidarity you got and presented to hurt my guarantees and interests. I complain with the antitrust justice because you formed a trust scam in USA and Europe, and also the NATO, as Portugal, the regulatory use, OECD, US defensive system, and the security forum considering the health part, which is not integrated at the criminal as purpose, considering the interest. This architecture hurt the paramilitary risk they do, and the transnational organized crime on budget. We prove it all the time, a dozen times, 24 hours a day, in each second of each day. And this will be transferred to the United Nations Office as Drug and Crimes, because if the Ministry of the Supreme Court or some top chairs has problems as drug and crimes, they will impact not only this conjuncture and architecture, but also all international agreements they are, like we proved at the Security Forum. And you hurt them at the purpose as security, which is this international agreement, fraudulent and defaulting things in the way you always do criminal system. That will have the International Criminal Court on it by the misuse of state power, which will request and transfer information as dialogue inside the United Nations with the World Trade Organization to understand the movement of risk at the supply chains, globally talking by the silence inside, considering the drug that affect the United Nations too, because they are there sourced at corrupted architecture, at least at G20. And the World Health Organization unable to present a unique, single, real, and concrete, reliable information about the COVID-19, for instance. This is the idea of our industrial portfolio self-defense. We strike back because we suffer the aggressions at first, and the criminal offenders are crying now as a system the compensation because they are not criminal or something like this, but it's a fraud by all things they do. And of course, as we told, you must receive them to know who they are. The control by matrix, new tracer, we have the matrix as control, positive one, regular area, corrupted, intention on it, unveiled as criminal purpose. We use the judicial theory USA and convert the view. The criminal area corrupted will lead to deeper level of criminality, which is the state crimes, and we get this by plea bargain. Paycheck 38 trillion, August 22, case 10 billion, harassment, economic espionage at least. We consider all financial penalties are applied because you insisted on it, criminal offenders. Brazil and peers has in Brazil a major friend, which is this, that has no commitment with their own law, constitution, and ruled from the top and to the bottom by the continuity of systemic crime, even modifying, for instance, a plea bargain or creating a new law or setting an executive order as government to offer facilities for the criminal purpose they share in common, including the stability as violated guarantees and interest hurt that has no excuse to be made. Brazil and peers operated as a criminal system for criminal purposes, included institution and state power by this issue on International Criminal Court, violated basic rights and guarantees, observed that had no excuse to be made and kept and insisted by hoax. After all, hurt interests and issues on private living, privacy, and others. Brazil is charged, Brazil is doomed, and also their peers. We request no ties with. The default still is white collar crime. They are all in Blazing Act. Have a great week.